Hi, I'm Maya, a software engineer on the Telegraph team at InfluxData. You heard about the APIs from my colleague Vinay, and now I will be demonstrating the APIs through the Python client library to show platform management as well as writing and querying data. In this presentation, I'll start off with a brief introduction of the InfluxDB API and the available client libraries. The remainder of the presentation will focus on two demos where I show how easily developers can get started with the InfluxDB API to quickly manage their database as well as write and query data using our available client libraries. The InfluxDB v2 API provides a programmatic interface for interactions with the features and functionality of InfluxDB. The API URL endpoints exposes fundamentals like writing, querying, and deleting data can be done directly through the API. Here, users can accomplish most of their day-to-day interactions. Tasks and scripts allow users to create scheduled Flux queries and create custom endpoints to empower users. Administration of the InfluxDB instance, including creating and managing buckets, organizations, and users without the need to even touch the UI. The InfluxDB client libraries provide a series of helpful interfaces and methods to assist you while quickly interfacing with the InfluxDB API in your language of choice. All of these are open source and licensed under the MIT license. The client libraries are published in the usual package managers for those languages. For example, the Python library is readily available on PyPy. With options including Python and Go to JavaScript, Java, and C#, and even R and Swift, nearly every user should find a library in a language they are familiar with. Each language's library supports the same set of APIs, providing a consistent experience, no matter what language you choose. Now I want to turn to demonstrating one of the client libraries. Remember, each language differs slightly, but the functionality is the same. Imagine, if you will, you are an IT or a developer. You are supporting many organizations or customers who want access to InfluxDB. This demo will show you how via the API you can quickly ramp up a new InfluxDB org, bucket, users, and tasks for those new organizations and customers, quickly ramping them up via the API without even having to touch the web UI. In order to set up the new organizations in this demo, I'm going to make use of these endpoints: orgs, users, buckets, and tasks. Orgs to create the organization, users, buckets, tasks to create those objects. These APIs provide all the capabilities needed to manage the life cycles, including creating, listing, modifying, and deleting all of these resources. Users can check out the full API docs at the URL below. The docs include all the available endpoints, methods, and examples showing the required header, bodies, and responses. For this first demo, the flow will look like this. We are taking two config files, one with the URL and credentials to connect to InfluxDB, and a second YAML file that defines the organization with the users, buckets, and tasks we want to set up. The script I wrote is in Python, built upon the InfluxDB Python client library. It will parse the YAML and go and create the necessary resources via the API calls. You can do this with InfluxDB Cloud, but today I will be working locally. So let's take a look. First, we're going to start with just looking at the UI and how there is only one organization from which I set up when I set up my local database. Now let's look at the management script. This one's written in Python, as I said before. We're going to go over our main function where you take in your devops.yaml file, which holds the buckets, the tasks, the users, and the name of the organization I want to create. We'll load it in. We have our credentials.toml file, which holds my local database instance and my token to write to that database. And then I have different functions for creating users, buckets, and tasks, which you can go look at as this code is hosted on GitHub. Now we'll run the demo script so you can see the organization, buckets, tasks, and users get created. We'll start by running Python. We'll pass in the credential file, and the organization. As you can see, we have successfully made our organization, our users, our buckets, and tasks. You can also go over to your UI, refresh, and see our new organization. We can go into that organization, see our new buckets, as well as our tasks. As an end user, how can I quickly push my cool data set and query data back out for analysis? In the second demo, I will turn to demonstrating the two fundamentals, writing and reading data from InfluxDB. For this demo, the write and query APIs will get used. To write data, data is sent using line protocol format as shown at the bottom. This consists of a measurement name and a field with a value. Optionally, additional tags used for grouping data and timestamps can be included. To query the data, it is generally best to group or transform the data. This way, users are taking advantage of the power of InfluxDB database engine rather than just pulling all of the data out. For this demo, I'm going to demonstrate the basic write and query operations. First, I'll take some pre-existing line protocol data that is stored in a file, and I'll write that to InfluxDB. Then I'll query that data with some transformations, print it using JSON and CSV to the terminal. This is where a user is ready to do additional processing or analysis of the data. Again, while I'm doing this locally, you could be using the same APIs with InfluxDB Cloud. Let's take a look. In this demo, I'm going to load some existing data I already have on hand in line protocol, as you can see here. We will go into the write folder and run the write script here. As it runs, we can see that we're opening our data file, we're reading in the lines, using our same credentials, and then putting it into our testing bucket. As you can see in the terminal, we've successfully wrote 2,427 metrics. We can then go to the UI, refresh, go to our testing bucket, and see all of our data has now been written. Now we can quickly query the data back out. So we'll go into the query folder. You can see here we have our credential file, our Flux queries that we want to run to JSON, and our Flux queries that we want to run to CSV. And here in the console, you can see we have our JSON as well as our CSV at the bottom. Today, in this presentation, we learned that the API is exposed and powerful and rules the entire platform. The open source client libraries provide pre-built interactions in the language of your choice. So you can choose your language, build, and improve your time to awesome. Here we have some further readings, including the InfluxDB API guide, the client libraries documentation, a deep dive blog post from my colleague Josh to help you get started, and where the code is hosted. Thank you.